Hello and welcome to the Voice of Liberty podcast. My name is Henry Conley. I'm glad to have you guys here. I want to talk about liberty, and I want to talk about independence tonight. And I want to talk about liberty and independence for a reason. As everybody that lives in the United States and pretty much anywhere else in the world knows, tomorrow is July 4th, Independence Day. It's a day to celebrate the independence of this country, to celebrate this country's liberty, and this country's freedom. But I want to talk about this for a different reason. Tomorrow, unironically, while we are celebrating the freedom, the liberty, and the independence of this country, we will be celebrating it without actually having achieved those things for every person that sits within the borders of this country. We will have spent tomorrow celebrating independence, liberty, and freedom while unarmed minorities are gunned down in the streets by police, while systemic racism still affects us, while the scars of our past have not been rectified, and while people are being caged and families are being separated at our borders. While we are celebrating our independence, on top of that, we will also be ignoring the very people locked up for victimless crimes, who have had their liberty, their freedom, their independence stripped from them. They've had their very identity removed. These people, whether locked in cages at the borders, families separated, unarmed minorities being gunned down in the streets, systemic racism, victimless crimes, landing them in jail. These people, their independence, their freedom, and their liberty have not been realized. Their liberty, their independence, and their freedom has yet to make it to them. Tomorrow, celebrating Independence Day, is just an absolute horror. But then, I also want to shift into something else. Another group whose freedom, independence, and liberty have been removed and stripped from them for years, hundreds of years, whose land was removed from their possession in order to form the westward expansion of this country. People whose holy sites are now sites of near religious patriotism. Of course, I'm talking about the Native Americans, and I'm specifically talking about Mount Rushmore. Now, I did a video last week about monuments. I did a video about Mount Rushmore. And as much as I don't want to rehash videos and reharp on videos, I do want to discuss something. At 10 p.m. Eastern tonight, Donald Trump will give a speech in front of Mount Rushmore, a mountain which has 4 faces, blasted and carved into it. 2 of them slaveholders. One of them culpable of murder and mass murder during the westward expansion. And another culpable of murder even though he freed the slaves. These faces are on an unbelievably sacred piece of land. The Black Hills, sacred to the Lakota people, sacred to the Cheyenne, the Omaha, the Arapaho, the Kiowa, and the Kiowa Apache. Land that was once known as Pahasapa, the heart of everything. I said all of this in a previous video. I spoke about this. Tonight, Donald Trump is going to give a speech in front of land that was, one, guaranteed to those very people, given to those very people, and then stolen from them by us. He's going to give a speech, and he's going to claim that he's going to tell the real history of the United States, the real history of our monuments, the real history that the left wants to steal from you. He's going to use the backdrop as four giant faces as a major campaign stop. in that he is going to ignore, almost guaranteed, he is going to ignore how that land came into the United States possession. He's going to almost completely ignore who really owns that land. That's not me using some washed up knowledge to state that. That's me literally reading the very documents that guaranteed the land to the Native Americans. He's going to sit there and use the sacred Black Hills as a backdrop for his last group that he can push to. White, racist people. As he's using that as his black backdrop, I can almost guarantee you that he'll have images in his head of his face being up there. The real discussion should be occurring right now is returning that land to the people whose original ownership over it existed. That land was the Lakota peoples. That land was the Cheyenne peoples. That land was the Omaha and the Arapaho, the Kiowa and the Apache. That was their land. That was their sacred home. You want to talk about liberty and freedom. You want to talk about independence. Their very freedom, independence, and liberty to practice their culture and to celebrate their rich history, that was stolen from them. It's been stolen from them. It hasn't been handed back to them. So instead of pretending that this country, it has liberty or freedom or independence, it is time for us to do what is right and discuss who doesn't have independence, who doesn't have freedom, and who doesn't have liberty in this country. Because unless you are a white Anglo-Saxon, I can guarantee you your very freedoms, independence, and liberty, they're not there. Unless you are a white man or a white woman, you don't have much freedom, liberty, or independence. There's something coming at you. There's something that this country has repeatedly done to destroy you and your culture. And it's time to fix that. Leaders and elders of I believe it was of the Lakota tribe today stated, and earlier this week, they stated that this event being hosted on their sacred land puts their sacred land and the people in danger. They stated that fireworks could destroy their sacred lands. Remember, South Dakota, they're experiencing a little bit of a drought, and fireworks, they have a slight ability at setting fires. So, by launching off fireworks out behind Mount Rushmore, there runs the risk of destroying the sacred land of the Native Americans. As Beau of the Fifth Column put it earlier, the best way to describe it is their Garden of Eden. But it goes beyond that. And it's amazing how real and how vivid the Lakota people think, and Native Americans in general think. Holding a rally during a spike in COVID-19 cases with 7,000 plus people who have been told you don't have to wear a mask, the way that they fear that it will destroy their sacred land even more is that it will lead to sickness that will be related back to their sacred lands for years to come. I don't have an answer as to what should happen with Mount Rushmore besides this. It is time that they have their land back. It is time that they have the ability to worship, to practice, and to be free on the land that was stolen from them and then ceremoniously given back to them only to be stolen from them again. The land was theirs. The land is theirs. The land was never the United States' possession to give. Be a voice of liberty. Awaken the voice of liberty.